Hello everyone, this is Political Chit Chat and I'm your host Gonzalo Duran. I look forward to talking to you about global and local politics. If you'd like to be on the show, feel free to email me at gonzaloduranyc@gmail.com. To get to know me better, feel free to check out my social media at Gonzalo Duran NYC. Until then, and as always, God bless America. Hello everyone, this is Political Chit Chat and I'm your host Gonzalo Duran. Our honored guest today is Elijah Diaz, running for City Council District 45 in Brooklyn. Elijah, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So for the audience that may not know who you are, would you mind giving a little bit about your background?
Yeah, my name is Elijah Diaz. Again, City Council candidate for District 45 in Brooklyn, formerly a college athlete, business owner, small business entrepreneur, and now running politician.
So, you know, we've known each other for about a year now.
Yep.
When I first met you, we were talking business and nonprofit stuff and things like that. How did you transition into politics?
Well, you know, when I was in college, I studied journalism, so I had already been into it a little bit. I'd studied it, written a lot of articles. I actually did broadcast journalism before, so this is kind of like home to me. So, as I was getting into it and seeing how politics directly affects business and the same dynamic that it has in both, you know, I decided to take a crack at it, and it was simple enough, and it was a comfortable environment for me, being that you know, entrepreneurship is inevitably competitive. You know, politics was just one and the same, and you know, I saw the struggle in my area, in Flatbush particularly, and nobody stepped up to do the right thing or to actually advocate for those who don't have a voice, who are underrepresented. And so I decided to step in, and it's been a go ever since. And
you know, your campaign has had some rough parts in it, and we just got finishing with the petitioning season of it. Would you mind going into some of that details right there?
Yeah, well, we had some adversity in the beginning. You know, this is a grassroots campaign, so you're always going to have something short, you know, a resource that isn't completely there yet where you're comfortable and you can, you know, sit back and relax for a day. It's always pedal to the metal, boots on the ground. That being said, you know, when we were petitioning, we had a challenge actually from my opponent, the incumbent Farrah Lewis, and she tried to sue me in Kings County Supreme Court to get me thrown off the Republican and the conservative ballot. I'm endorsed by the conservatives, and I did my own petitioning for the Republican line, and she tried to get me off both. And when we were successful and we won in court, she actually came back and appealed and tried to get me thrown off again, but was unsuccessful to that measure. So, you know, it's still, you know, every day is a little bit more of an adversity, continuing to go when you don't have all of the resources intact. But I'm going all the way to November. So any bit of adversity, I welcome it and I challenge it.
Well, I mean, obviously that's a great attitude, and you know, I think you're simplifying it a little too easily, letting her off right now. I mean, we're talking about somebody who is an incumbent, somebody who has like a 96% voter percentage, and you know, not only did she take you to the challenger petition, she took you to the Supreme Court, and then she went even further by going to the appellate court, which I can honestly say that's I've never seen that much animosity against someone. Especially in this kind of situation where, you know, it's your first time campaign, you're doing it grassroots. Why do you think they need to challenge you so hard? Why come you so aggressively?
Well, simply because I'm the voice of the people, and I'm the first challenger to the Democratic machine in the district's history. You know, there's never been a Republican, there's never been a conservative candidate, and when you take a look around, the dynamic of the area is actually not that of a progressive nature. You know, we have predominantly a Caribbean community in my district. We have a lot of Jewish, a lot of Muslim, Christian, you know, interfaith communities, and most of them tend to be conservative. However, the Democratic Party hasn't really identified with them at all, but they just continue to, you know, win and win and win and win and win because they have the money, they have the power, and they have no other challengers. So that animosity comes towards, oh, we actually have a threat now We actually have someone who's going to be the voice of the people, and this challenges the authority that we look to impose on District 45. And so that's where it comes from, very simply. You said that I'm letting her off easy. Well, I think at that point it's irrelevant. The district, everyone that I've spoken to, and again, I've tried to get good and bad reviews on her just to see who I'm up against. I haven't had a single good interaction with someone who has interacted with Farrah Lewis. They say she's a ghost. She is inaccessible. She doesn't show up to anything. When she does show up, it's for 5 minutes, a photo op, and then she's out the door. So again, it's really an irrelevant conversation to say that I'm letting her off easy because I don't know what to attack.
And you make a good point right there. And it's not. Me personally, I'm not aiming at any one particular individual or party, but this is something that is felt across the city, where a lot of the incumbents don't show up to debate. There's sentiments that many of them don't even show up to the job too much.
Yep.
And that's something that I've come across. There's 51 city council members up for election this year. From my understanding, a good percentage are being challenged, but not all of them. And there's a trend. I think there's let's say there's only 4 or 5 Republicans, and then only a few of them, all those Republicans have the conservative line or endorsement. Mm-hmm. So the rest are all Democrats. So yep. and the margin in New York City is anywhere between, I don't know, it's always changing, but I mean it's always 8 or 10 or 12 to 1. Yeah. So yeah. And percentage wise that means so that the average, let's see, opponent maybe gets, if they're lucky, 20% of the other vote. Mm-hmm. So it's a large gap that other let's say the challengers have to face. What are you doing now that you know they're not really probably gonna debate you or maybe do any forums with you? How are you gonna counteract that?
Simply sticking to grassroots campaigns and getting my name out there, getting people that are previously underrepresented again in a vote. I'm speaking more towards the independent voters who are approximately 55% of my district, and going door to door and doing it the right way. I wouldn't consider myself a politician. I'm more of a leadership type. I'm not going to just wave my hand around and give orders. I'm more of if I can do it myself, I'm going to do it myself kind of leader. And so knocking on doors, doing community events. I've done several cleanups in the neighborhood, and I'm getting notoriety from that. And just letting the people know that, hey, listen, I'm accessible. I've left my phone lines open. I've left my social media open. And people who come and actually interact with me get me directly. They don't get someone on my team. They don't get someone that promises to give an email 2 weeks later and never gets back to them. They have me directly, the candidate, the person who is going to lead that district in the right direction and into triumph.
So now, with that being said, what are some of your platforms that you're working on to show the people?
Yeah, public safety is a big one. There's been a lot of crimes. We have a lot of our women that don't feel safe walking alone at night, after a long day of work. You have education. Education's a big one. It's actually been progressing a lot more in the past few weeks. And with that, I actually want to work with the youth. I think we have a systematic oppression still, not in the way of race anymore as it used to be or people are more familiar with, but I think the systematic oppression comes from the education that our children are not taught how to correctly do their taxes. They're not taught correctly how to save. Families don't know that they can start their business through index universal life insurance policy. There's a lot of things in an entrepreneurship perspective that could really benefit families, and however, that's not done, it's not shown. So definitely want to be able to do educational workshops when I get in there and reach out directly to the schools. But my plan on that is still, I have to wait until a little bit deeper into the campaign to share that. But a big one actually is reinstate and compensate. It's a movement that I got familiar with the Donald J. Trump Club of Kings County, and which is basically city workers who were fired for not taking the COVID vaccine, those who wanted to, have their medical freedom intact, they were fired from their city jobs and they're unable to make a living simply because they said, my body, my choice. When you see adversaries say the same thing, you have, oh yeah, good for you, go you, go you. But when it comes to a vaccine that nobody's even sure of, now you have individuals in the tens of thousands that are being fired, inexcusably.
So let's hit a little bit on each one of these, your platforms. I'm sure you have many more, but for these three, let's say the reinstate one. Obviously you said it pretty detailed. What would you say the club in your perspective is? Are you trying to get them all reinstated, all back pay, all, like, you want the whole shebang?
Every single one.
Okay. Now, I know the city has a deficit of employees, because every time I'm at a mayoral meeting or a conference, they're like, well, we have all these openings. Let's offer these openings for, let's say, the migrants coming in or for the community, et cetera. But nobody's thinking the reason why there's a deficit is because they fired a lot of people.
Yep.
So that's one thing. Now, obviously, the city hasn't just waved their finger or their wands or whatever to reinstate these people. I would assume one of the reasons is because the back pay issue. Now you're reinstating the employees. You have to pay them back as well. Do you see any leeway with negotiations with, let's say, those individuals that want the whole shebang, and the people that are saying, well, let's back off of it?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of finding out how bad the problem actually is, because obviously, you see advocacy for what it is, and people want to extend that truth. And as true as it may be, I personally don't know exactly all of the metrics. So on that, I'd like to work with different city organizations, different nonprofits, different advocacy groups to really get a good sense of what we're doing in that aspect. And I think it's a failure on the city. The city hasn't done very much to do exactly that and get a real good grip on the problem itself and then have a solution for it. It's more so, we have a problem that's getting tension in the media. Okay, let's just throw money at it. And that's where you get the irresponsible spending. That's where you get a budget deficit. That's where you get a city worker deficit. And you have all these deficits across the city, and they've been absolutely terrible dealing with that.
And that makes sense, of course. Now, for education, there's some things that you don't want to share at the moment, which I understand. Some of the things that you've seen that, you already gave details on why you think it needs to reform, but what are maybe some policies that the club, yourself, or maybe what you've gone through? Because you're talking to a lot of people now. What's your objective on some of these policies that you might want to be working on?
Well, one thing is combating the city of yes. Now, I don't know how specifically to overcome that yet. However, it has been a detriment to parents' rights, parents' rights to school choice, parents' rights to even have a say in the curriculum or the social aspect of their child's life in school. The city of yes, it continuously, okay, yes, we're going to allow the schools to do this, and this, and you're taking away a parent's right who knows exactly what they want for their children, what's best for their children, and that's completely unacceptable. If someone were to tell me as a parent, I'm not yet a parent, but if someone were to tell me as a parent, hey, listen, we're going to teach your child this, and this, and you have no say in it, I'd be like, oh, hell no.
Especially when it's not the regular formatted, English, math, science, etc. And then, like, well, why are we learning about this? And when our reading is not that great, we're not number one, we're not number two, or any of these things that are subject matters. Let's focus on that maybe. I don't know. That's the way I think.
Well, from the last that I heard, I think our reading level for fourth graders was at 32%. Math was at 27%. Science and social studies were even lower than that. What are they teaching these kids in school? It doesn't make any sense to me. Even when I was, I'm the youngest candidate, so I just came out of high school, 4 years ago? It was the same redundant thing over and over and over again. You teach to pass a test or to fulfill that check mark or that check box on a list. You don't teach to actually educate and create a society with productive citizens. Productive citizens, when you see an Elon Musk, a Jeff Bezos, and you look at that, they're outliers in that scenario. I think that we can have a society full of people like that, maybe not to that extent. However, we can have self-sufficient people that are not reliant on their government or their nonprofit or any other person. They're self-reliant on themselves and their families.
And then thank you for being more detailed this time. If we backtrack just one more on the first platform with safety. Now, are we seeing more cops? Are you seeing more programs? What are we talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing more cops. We're seeing more public safety programs. Again, there's one thing specifically that I can't share directly, but it's it's a matter of street smarts. I come from Flatbush. It was a rough area growing up. It's gentrifying slowly here and there. I won't say whether it's good or bad, but you have to have street smarts to understand where the crime is coming from and why it's happening. So I'm not afraid to go into the middle of the hood to figure out exactly what's going on and what the problems are there, because there's a root of every problem. It's not just somebody going out of their way to commit a crime out of sane mind. There's an underlying, compromising factor that is leading them to take that action. And so when we can understand that and we can get to the root of the problem, then we'll be able to come up with a solution. That being said, hiring more officers is definitely something that I want to do to enforce the law. We need to have preventative measures as well. Police officers can only respond to actions after they happen, after we already have a tragedy. That being said, they are extremely important to be a presence where people who cannot defend themselves as easily feel safe in their presence. And so hiring more police officers, again, after thousands were fired from Kathy Hochul, is going to be instrumental in changing the dynamic of District 45.
No, I'm sure there's been, the city, from what I've seen in let's say the last 2 years specifically, you see a trend, something happens and you see more cops out and then they disappear and then something else happens and then you see them come out. And I'm always like, well, where were these cops before? I'm not saying you have to throw, like I've been going home the last week late at night, and each train station, I've gone to different train stations. One was in 180th Street in the Bronx, one was on East Tremont, one was on Pelham, and I see like 8 cops downstairs conjugating, right? Mm-hmm. And then 2 upstairs, so 10 total that I could see visibly. There could have been more in different areas. In my mind, I'm thinking, but by no means am I saying that they weren't doing work. They could have been relaxing, they just finished a shift, maybe they were setting up for the plans for the next thing, I don't know. But, walking by and seeing 8 cops chilling and then seeing 2 cops upstairs, focused and patrolling, I'm thinking, are we utilizing it the right way? Like, I don't want to pick on them because I don't know what their assignments was that day. I don't know if they just finished, if they were just starting or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, I'm like, do we have enough cops, or are they not being utilized the right way? We've seen how the administration, the commissioner position has been filled multiple times. Yep. We have scandals after scandals, and on top of that, the overtime scandals on top of that. So where do we go to say this is where it needs to start? Do we revamp it? Do we throw more money at it? Do we get more cops in there? There's no simple solution, and I'm sure people are coming to you for a 1-minute answer. Yeah. And you're like, well, there's a lot of things you got to focus on. With that being said, you've worked with some individuals that are pro-cops, and you've come, I'm assuming your neighborhood is maybe divided there. Some are pro-cops, some are against it. Mm-hmm. How do you, as a new candidate and somebody who's working on the grassroots level, how do you explain to them why it's important to have more cops?
Well, to fix that, you need to fix their preconceived notions of the police. You have people still recovering from that defund the police movement that we had just a few years ago. And so that kind of revamped the hatred of cops. And it's usually in urban settings, bigger cities, you had LA, you had New York, Chicago, where you see a lot more hatred towards cops. And so you need to have that relationship be renewed between the police force and the civilians. It's not an easy thing to do, but you need someone to come out there and, say how it is. Say, we're going to do this, we're going to revamp the relationship and understand that cops cannot overimpose their authority on a civilian. However, we cannot have civilians attacking our police, spitting on them, attacking them, assaulting them, and then thinking it's just okay because because of what? Because of a social movement? That's never okay.
Yeah.
And that's not going to stand with me at all.
One of the things that, once again, trying to give somebody an answer on the fly, I'm like, look, we gotta, I believe cops get paid well. Could they always be paid better for the job they're doing? Of course, and especially with the things that they have to do. That's one thing. Another thing is trying to get the cops back at a position where they're being respected in the community. Not to say that they're not respected, but obviously there's a lot of issues going on where we don't know one day if they're going to be, somebody was just killed recently, just sitting in his car, just relaxing. Somebody came out and shot him. That's stuff that you wouldn't hear, a couple of years ago, but now it's becoming more prevalent. You have cops trying to do their duties, and people are taking on their phones and just, messing with them at the same time. In a perfect world, the best way to eliminate crime is by not doing crime.
Right.
But nobody's going to listen to that part. But obviously, we're not going to solve that today.
Right.
I like to jump on a different subject matter. Right there, you have a Trump book right there.
Yeah.
You're
What is the deal?
in Central Brooklyn, and you're representing the Republican and endorsed by the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
How do you walk around in a predominantly Democratic location, not people-wise, but political-wise? Because I'm sure not only the city council person, the Senate person, the assembly person, I'm sure they're all Democrats. So how do you go in there and say, look, I'm for Trump, I work with Trump, how do you mitigate that with the community?
Yeah, well, I'm simply myself. I don't come around the divisive issues. I don't go and impose the MAGA movement on somebody else. I work with everyone. Working with my constituents or people on the opposite side of the aisle, it's not about Republican or Democrat, to me, at least. It's about, we have a serious crisis going on where we're not solving issues neither on the left nor on the right. So we have to come together, even if we don't like each other, or you don't like what Donald Trump stands for, you don't like what I stand for. We need to come together and find a reasonable solution that is both common sense and pragmatic to reaching a solution where New York City is safe. And that's a problem that a lot of candidates have, or a lot of elected officials have, is that they continuously bash the right or they continuously bash the left, and we're at a standstill. It's always been a stalemate where we cannot reach a simple position, and that leads to delays in government as if it wasn't long enough. It doesn't take long enough with lawyers and delays and appeals and all of that. Now we can't even have a basic agreement on something that is going to be a long-standing issue in the city of New York. And so it's going back to having that respect for the opposite side of the aisle and for your own side of the aisle, where you can respectfully push your movement and push your values, but you can also come to a reasonable compromise if the opposite side is, a strong majority of people. So that's definitely a big part of it.
So you have the support for your parties. You have the support of one of your clubs. Have you seen any growth in that support from any other organizations or any platforms that have been reaching out to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's all around the city. We have a great bunch of organizations. Moms for Liberty is one of them that I really truly love. You have the Queens Village Republican Club, Donald J. Trump Club, different organizations around. I won't name them all because we have a bunch of good ones. And also, I don't want to,
Of course.
I don't want to,
you miss one, everybody gets mad at you.
Exactly, and I don't want to divide it either, because then all of a sudden they support the Trump candidate. Oh my God, you're this, you're that. I don't want any attacking of these organizations. But definitely people who understand, and both Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Conservatives alike have really resonated with my message and with my platforms, because it's not about party lines, it's about common sense. Anybody can have common sense. I think, to me, we shouldn't even be having policies that are considered common sense, because again, it should be common sense. So, having that, we're getting support all across the board, and I'm really appreciative for that. I'm really humbled by that as well. And so, we're looking good. We still need to continue the momentum and keep driving all the way to November. And I'm sure that those groups, even if they can't vote for me, they're going to come out and support, tell their friends to come out and support on November 4th.
And what would you say to new candidates maybe planning to start out or maybe have started the process already? What advice would you give them?
I'd say start getting in tune with your communities and understand how the city works. Because if you don't understand how the city works and you don't understand how people work, you're not going to be a good candidate. You're not going to resonate a lot with the people of the city of New York. And New York is brutal. New Yorkers are brutal, brutal people. But they're some of the best people that you could also meet as well. So you got to have thick skin. You got to have thick skin. You have to have a tough mentality. And if you don't have that, just get involved. There's many ways to get involved. At 16, you could be a part of your community board. 17, you could register to vote, with it enacting at age 18. But just getting involved and being educated on certain matters, it goes a long way to even starting, because just doing the work is doing the work. That's the easy part.
Now, quickly, if somebody wanted to get to know you better, maybe reach out to your campaign, how would they go do that?
Yeah, so I'm on social media at Diaz for Brooklyn, DIAZFOR Brooklyn, and DiazForCityCouncil.com.
And if anything, reach out to us and we'll be happy to get you to them. If you're interested in being a guest at Political Chit Chat, feel free to email me at Gonzalo Duran, nyc@gmail.com. If you'd like to get to know me more, and feel free to check out my social media. All of them are at Gonzalo Duran, NYC. Until then, and as always, God bless America. Hello, everyone. This is Political Chit Chat, and I'm your host, Gonzalo Duran. I look forward to talking to you about global and local politics. If you'd like to be on the show, feel free to email me at gonzaloduranyc@gmail.com. To get to know me better, feel free to check out my social media at Gonzalo Duran NYC. Until then, and as always, God bless America.